Hi, I'm Rich Wyatt. Welcome to Gunsmoke Guns TV.com. Okay, welcome guys to GunsmokeGunsTV.com. Now, a lot of you have asked us to do some new stuff, to talk about some new guns. And so today, Bob and I are going to talk about some new guns.
I have a feeling that's not exactly what they meant, Rich. Because we're talking about new guns, but we're not really talking about new guns. We're talking about new old guns. Or old new guns?
Well, they should have been more specific.
That's it.
No, they were, and we'll get to some of those super laser, phaser, taser, knockdown, shoot a lot of special guns that you want.
Large capacity magazines, that way you don't have to learn how to shoot.
That's right. But see, here's the thing. Bob and I are old.
Yes.
That's why we like to talk about old guns.
Right.
You know, because everybody is talking about all these super phaser tasers, and we are not talking about that right now. We are talking about new old guns. And Bob, what are we talking about?
You know, Rich, you've made jokes, made fun of my age a number of times. And I want to clear some stuff up right now. I did not participate in the Civil War. I was not
You
there.
were a draft dodger?
I was.
You dirty, rotten.
I was. Now, I was very much involved in the Centennial, 1960. It actually started in 1959. And you know what? Today's replica market is really caused by the Civil War Centennial in 1960.
Sure.
A gentleman by the name of Val Forget Jr., started a company called Navy Arms, and he was the first to really import a number of replica firearms. I was involved in reenacting in the 60s. Later on, I became more involved in skirmishing, which is more of a shooting sport.
So hold on. That's what we're talking about today, folks. Replica guns. Guns that you might not be able to afford, like this 66 Winchester, because it's just way out of your price range. You never want to shoot it, compared to this 66, which is not a Winchester, but looks identical.
Right. Rich
Replica
just
guns.
screwed up our test because I was going to do a quiz. I was going to have him scan the guns and then tell us which ones were old and which ones were replica, and send in a $5 entry fee and then we'd let you know if you were right or wrong.
I see.
You messed that up.
So, well, we could do with some other guns because they may not know.
That's true.
They may not know. I think they could tell with these, don't you? These two.
If they got a half a brain, yes.
But we didn't mean to offend some of you viewers that didn't know the difference, but we're going to educate you on them now.
Right. Okay, so Val Forget started a company called Navy Arms, and in 1960, if you wanted to participate in Civil War reenacting, you had to use an original gun.
Right.
Okay, you could buy an original 1863 Springfield rifle musket for $125, and mint unfired ones for $125. Okay, things changed. People decided maybe we shouldn't be shooting these historically significant firearms.
Right.
So Val Forget Jr. started a company called Navy Arms, went to Italy, and had guns made in Italy, replicas. And most of the guys today are shooting replica firearms, not original firearms. But he's the guy who started the replica business. He's the one who got people interested in shooting new guns made to look like old guns.
So the latest craze, the more my timeline than Bob's timeline of the Civil War, is SAS, Single Action Shooting Society. And that's where people dress up like cowboys and go out and shoot cowboy guns.
Well, they dress up like they think cowboys ought to look like. And I've been to SAS shoots. I'm a SAS member myself. And some of these guys are really, really, really way out there. And of course, there are different categories. One is silver screen, which is fascinating because then it made them look like Roy Rogers with the embroidered shirts and all that stuff.
Well, that's your 50s cowboys that never actually carried guns with low drop slung holsters like that because it'd fall right out the second you jumped on your horse.
Right? Exactly.
So the SAS shooting, I get it. They're dressing up how people wanted to look or thought. You know, probably the way a cowboy was a gun tucked in his belt.
Yeah, or
not
his boot,
not in a
whatever.
holster.
Yeah.
And, you know, all the big gunfights at the OK Corral, with the exception of that one, which was real, all right, all the big gunfights in the streets that you hear about and stuff, that's not how they happen.
Never happened.
The way they happened was you got in an argument with a guy, he left, got a shotgun. When you walked out, he blew you away.
Right. Or you followed him home and shot him in the back.
Yeah, that's how it works. So these guns that we're talking about now are the replicas, and of course the stuff we got out here is mostly cowboy stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we do? I've got
right.
2 saddles in my living room.
Right.
So you're right. These are cowboy.
Big hat, no horse.
That's it. Big hat, no cows.
Yeah, you got no horse
I
either.
had no horse either.
Yeah.
I got hamsters. But anyhow, these are mostly cowboy or let's say Western style guns.
Sure.
But that's where the interest is right now in replica firearms. That and the Civil War.
So these are functioning guns, right? There's a difference between a Hollywood prop gun and a functioning gun. These are functioning guns that are designed to look like an old cowboy gun. So if we take a look up front here, here's an 1873 Colt Single Action Army, 3rd generation. Here's an 1873 Colt Single Action Army, 2nd generation. Here's an 1873.
No generation.
No generation.
That's an Italian-made gun.
That's a replica. These are real. That's a replica.
And it's a shooting replica.
Yeah.
It's a gun that actually I antiqued because it just didn't look right being bright, shiny new with those aged buffalo grips, the bison thigh bone grips.
And it looks better now that you've antiqued it than it
With
did
those grips, it certainly does.
before it started out like. Now, this is shiny and bright. That's nickel. This is blued steel with a color case hardened frame and ivory stocks, which, of course, ivory is the king's stock. I mean, that's a guy ought to have a ivory stocked gun. Otherwise, he hasn't lived a good life. Now, this right here is a very special gun. This is Bob's Henry rifle. Now, the Henry was the first lever action rifle, pretty much the first lever action rifle made by the Volcanic Rifle Company.
Volcanic Firearms.
Volcanic Firearms. And it was later bought out by Mr. Winchester, and he made some modifications and came out with this gun, the 66. The Henry has no forearm on it. This has a wood forearm, which helps in so many things and makes the gun better.
Shoot it 20 times, you find out.
That's right. This is a replica. This is a Uberti made Henry. This is a very, very special gun to all of us here because this is one of the first guns that Kurt engraved. And my family was fortunate enough to have this gun. And the best part about it is we gave it to Bob as a gift.
Yeah, it was my Christmas present about 4 years ago, and I shot the gun a number of times. It's a fine shooting gun in 45 Colt, not long Colt, 45 Colt.
Because it's long Colt.
Yeah. Because 44 Henry flat cartridges, rimfire, are really tough to get. Yeah. So 45 Colt is a shootable cartridge.
So what the replica market does out there for us today is allow us to take a gun like this and go out and shoot it. Now this is a 66 saddle ring carbine, and this gun's worth about $12,500. Now the ammunition, well, how much would that be a box?
Oh, I've seen cartridges for $20 a cartridge.
Yeah,
so.
Because it's so hard to get this rimfire 44 cartridge for this, and it's so expensive. And even if you could get it, why would you want to take the risk of shooting it and damaging the gun? So instead, you can buy this gun, and you could take this out. It's a 66. It's not a Winchester. It's a copy, and it's a great gun.
Yeah, right. And it's in 4440.
Yeah, and you can shoot it all day and have a lot of fun with it and enjoy it. It's got some Indian beading on it. It's got some engraving on it. It's a fantastic gun. And Bob, what's that gun worth?
You know, to get into this, some of the replica firearms are now collectible.
They are.
Some of the early Val-Forget Navy Arms guns are collectible. This is one of them.
Yeah.
I would value this gun probably somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
Yeah, I would say that would be $1,500 would be minimum money on a gun
Because
like
it's
this.
engraved.
Because it's engraved, and it's got cool stuff. And you know what? It looks just as cool as that gun on the wall for $1,500 compared to $12,500. Now here's the difference. Okay, these old collectible guns just keep going up and up and up and up probably about 17% a year in value, and they're worth a lot of money. And so, you know, if you want to have a real collector's item, that's the gun to buy. But in 50 years or so, when both Bob and I have kicked the bucket and we're buried deep into our coffins with our rifles across our chests,
I was going to say, with my single action arm.
and our 6 guns on our side, so don't break into our coffin and try to get us, because it's not going to work out for you. this is the gun I want to be buried with. I want my family to get all the dough out of this one.
You know what, Rich? This gun was made in 1976 to commemorate the Battle of Little Bighorn. So I would not be surprised if this gun's not appreciating 10 or 12% per year itself. They only made 2,500 of these in 1976. That's a long time ago. And so this gun, it may not go up as quickly as the original 66, but the guy who can't afford 12 grand can maybe afford 1,500.
You know, Bob, you're exactly right. And 76 sounds like a long time ago.
It wasn't. It was yesterday.
But it really was. I remember when this stuff, I'd look at these things in catalogs and in magazines and go, oh, wow, if I could get my hands on one of those. Well, now I got it, but I want to sell it.
Yeah.
So, now, Bob, you brought up an interesting thing. These are becoming collectible. And there's another gun that Custer didn't bother to take with him.
Yes.
When he went to Custer's last stand.
He had them. He had 2 or 3 of them, various differences of story, but he decided he didn't want to be slowed down by them. He didn't take them.
They were too heavy.
They were slow.
And they weigh too much.
Right.
And they were slow to move, but not to shoot. So there's an old adage in the military, you know, and it's important for people to understand this. The more you sweat in peacetime, the less you bleed in wartime. So let's go show them that gun and see whether it's a replica or not.
Good idea. Good idea. Cool. Okay, I think I know where this is going.
Okay, Bob. Now here's the thing.
God, aren't those beautiful?
Are these Gatling guns replicas?
You know, that's a tough one. They're not.
They are not.
They're not. You know, they're not vintage, and I guess this is where those two words, vintage and original, come into play, because this is a copy made by the same manufacturer of the 1871 Bulldog.
So here's how I like to describe it. This is a currently manufactured original Colt Gatling gun.
It sure is.
And it's original because it wasn't made by a different factory. Now, if the Italians went out and Uberti started making these, those would be reproductions.
Reproductions, right.
This is an original, a currently manufactured original. Just like if Chevrolet came out with an original, made to the original specs 67 Camaro.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool.
They'd sell every one of them.
It'd be original though, wouldn't it?
It would be, yes.
It would just be current manufacture.
Current manufacture. It would have electronic ignition, all the other stuff, but it would be original.
So here's what we have here. We have two 1877 Colt Bulldog Gatling guns. One on a tripod and one on a carriage. Yep. And, you know, it was Custer that had these guns and chose not to bring them to Custer's last stand.
Which might not have been his last stand had he had him with him.
That's right. And so the old adage comes into play right here, like we talked about earlier. You may sweat a little carrying this in peacetime, but in wartime, man, will you be glad you have it. It's like carrying a gun, isn't it, Bob? It costs you a little bit of weight to carry it around, right. But man, if you're carrying it every day, when all of a sudden something happens and you need it, you're sure glad you got it.
The only time you're ever going to need it is when you don't have it.
That's right.
You know what's interesting about the Gatling guns? There's another old saying in the military, is if you have it, bring it with you.
Right.
And he broke that rule.
Now, who brought these with him and won?
Okay, so we're talking about San Juan Hill.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt, right. And they were used somewhat, but you know what? One of the other stories, again, this may be apocryphal, but it is a story, was that they stopped using them because they were black powder cartridges.
And it made too much.
And it actually gave the Spanish something to shoot at.
Right.
So they used them, but they didn't use them as effectively.
It gave the Spanish that were left something to shoot at.
And pretty much.
Because when you crank this crank, let me tell you folks, it just hoses them down.
It does.
As fast as you can go. And these are great guns. If you don't have one of these in your living room, you need to get one because it's just un-American.
Like a hell of a lamp. Just put a rod up at a shade.
Put a little 60-watt bulb coming off there.
There you go.
And it's still a very good defensive weapon today.
It is.
I mean, this will repel all borders. So guys, the difference between a reproduction and an original gun is who made it. The manufacturer that originally made the gun or somebody that copied it later on. Doesn't matter what year it was made. If Winchester today comes out with an 1866 rifle, it is not a reproduction. It is a current manufacture of that gun. So know what you're buying. Be careful because people are taking reproductions. They almost got to us, didn't they?
They did.
They took a reproduction of a Colt Walker and they made it look old and they tried to sell it to us for $500,000. You might have seen that episode on American Guns. That guy, Wiley Newton, that did this to us, he is in jail because not only did he try to fraudulently sell us a gun, the other gun he baited us in with, the Dragoon, was stolen out of New Mexico. And we helped to get him put in jail. So guys, this is what we had to tell you about reproductions and currently manufactured guns and antiques. A currently manufactured Gatling gun today, depending upon what gun you're going to get, is going to cost you around $60,000, $70,000, up to $250,000. An antique Gatling gun, $500,000.
It depends.
$500,000. Thanks for watching GunsmokeGunsTV.com. Please tell all your friends about it and keep watching. We'll get to some of the other stuff some of you are interested in too.